Joining us now is former Labor Senator and Sky News contributor Stephen Conroy. Stephen Conroy, it is great to see you again. It's been a little while. Anthony Albanese has been on a taxpayer-funded tour of the UK where he met with British PM Keir Starmer and seemed to have taken aim at Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Anthony Albanese said that he doesn't want to see the rise of populist organisations such as Reform UK. Now, just this week, it's been revealed in an Ipsos poll that Keir Starmer is the most unpopular Prime Minister in British history, and the man who is soaring in the polls, of course, is Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Now, Farage has blasted Anthony Albanese as totally out of touch. Speaking to News Corp Australia, he said that voters have had enough, and Albanese has failed to recognise the current shift in political sentiment across the West. He said he's totally out of touch with the huge changes in the UK and elsewhere across the West. And this is what he had to say on Paul Murray Live.
No, I'm afraid the Australian PM not only didn't reach out, but he made it clear that he doesn't want to meet me. He thinks my politics are unacceptable. Made it very, very clear that he wanted nothing to do with me, which, when you think about it, long term is pretty stupid.
Stephen Conroy, do you agree? Was it a stupid move?
Look, I would agree with almost nothing that Nigel Farage has to say on any issue. The British election is 4 years away. Anthony Albanese is entitled to meet or not meet individuals. I don't think he met the Conservative leader either. I mean, the fact that Nigel Farage has a very pumped up opinion of himself when he barely holds any seats in the British Parliament is a matter for Nigel Farage. So I think the Prime Minister has known Keir Starmer a long time. He would obviously be supporting his re-election in 4 years' time. And it's no surprise. And in fact, it's important that he support and be seen to support Keir Starmer because the UK are the third leg of AUKUS. So it is important that we work together with the UK on the new nuclear sub that the UK and Australia are going to build and design, and as an increase on the Virginia subs, which now seems certain. But Nigel Farage's puffed up sense of himself is fine. He's entitled to take a view of himself that he's the most important person in the UK.
Well, it's not just Nigel Farage who thinks that. I think plenty of people in the UK making it clear that they prefer him to lead. But we'll see what happens. As you say, it's years away. Anthony Albanese managed to get a selfie with Donald Trump while he was in New York. And Donald Trump is finally going to make some time for Anthony Albanese. That meeting will be happening in 3 weeks' time. There are still concerns, though, that this relationship between Australia and the US is pretty tense right now, and it doesn't really help. Well, I suppose there's a lot of commentary that it doesn't really help that we have Kevin Rudd as the ambassador to the US, someone who has called Donald Trump a village idiot in the past. And of course, America is supposed to be our most important ally. It's now coming up to the 1 year mark since Donald Trump was elected, and it's really been some time. Anthony Albanese has been snubbed in the past. Now this meeting's finally going to happen on October 20. Stephen, is it going to be a success?
Well, look, I think you're starting to emerge that the AUKUS submarine deal appears to be going to be approved by the administration. They're entitled to do a review. We've worked hard behind the scenes, and we've always made it clear that this AUKUS pact is good for the US and the UK and Australia. It's a win-win-win. So for those who wanted it to fall over, wanted Trump to axe it, they're going to be disappointed. But the Prime Minister and Richard Marles, the Deputy Prime Minister, Defence Minister, have always been very confident that they would be able to make clear and explain the benefits. We are putting billions of dollars into helping the Americans fix their supply chain issues on Virginia subs. They've fallen behind their own target. That's why there's been concern. Not that Australia's receiving and buying their subs. It's been that the Americans have fallen behind their manufacturing process, and Australia is contributing billions to get their supply chain up to speed. And on the question of how long it's taken to meet Donald Trump, I mean, this idea that somehow Australia's out there, Robinson Crusoe, that, the relationship's in danger. Donald Trump has gone to effectively try and destroy the Canadian government and, be contemptuous to Canada. I mean, how do you have a fight with Canadians? I know Canadians. It's almost impossible to have a fight with them. He's attacked Mexico. He has attacked all the countries in Europe. So when Nigel Farage says about, changes in the West, there's no changes in Europe. And Nigel Farage might think he's the most important person in the UK, but there's significant Western countries that are backing Australia's position and not being sycophants to Donald Trump. I mean, the Australian public, all the polling here, Gab, is that 70% of them really don't think Donald Trump's much of a leader. And so Anthony Albanese has to tread a fine line between sycophancy, standing up for Australia's national sovereign interests and balancing our China trade deal. And I think the Australian public are giving Anthony Albanese a resounding tick if you look at all the polls at the moment. So I think that, Albo has absolutely steered the middle ground, calm and not being flustered and, giving in to Donald Trump's bullying. And I think the Australian people respect and admire Anthony Albanese for that.
I want to talk to you about Trump's 20-point plan that he's released for peace in Gaza. He's given Hamas just days to accept a peace proposal for the war in Gaza and has warned that it would be a very sad end if the terrorist group were to reject the plan. Now, yesterday, of course, we saw Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreeing to back the peace proposal as he spoke alongside Donald Trump at a media conference in Washington, D.C. Stephen, what do you make of this plan? How likely is it that Hamas will accept it?
Well, look, firstly, it's great to see a plan on the table, and it is now in Hamas's court. Hamas are prepared to fight to the last drop of Palestinian blood to try and discredit Israel. They started this war. They butchered and massacred, civilian Israelis at a festival. I mean, this is an atrocity that all these people out there campaigning for a Palestinian state just refuse to acknowledge. They refuse to acknowledge that Hamas use Palestinians as human shields while they go about waging war on Israel. So if they had had any decency or care for the Palestinian people, they would have surrendered months or years ago, disarmed, and allow a peace process to get going. But they have shown no willingness up to now. I mean, I hope that the pressure from all the other Middle East countries, and I don't think there's one that said they oppose this deal, that pressure can force Hamas to accept this peace deal and accept that they have no role going forward in the Gaza Strip or in the West Bank.
Yeah. Stephen, I want to talk to you about what's happening in Victoria. Victorian Liberal Party leader Brad Batten has pledged to keep transgender prisoners convicted of violent sex crimes out of women's prisons. Now, this comes after a father who sexually abused his 5-year-old daughter was placed in a female correctional centre. I mean, it's unbelievable that could have taken place. Do you support Brad Batten here?
Look, I think I would certainly want a review of, firstly, the sentence and the excuse the magistrate gave for such a soft sentence. So I think there needs to be a review of that, and the state government need to go in hard on that one. That's just not acceptable when you've molested your own child. Secondly, on the issue of transgender males who are transitioning or finished the transition being in women's prisons, even Nicola Sturgeon, a champion of this issue, realised it was a disaster publicly. And it was the beginning, and Nicola Sturgeon was the leader of the Scottish National Party in Scotland, and she was saying that this was good and this should be done. Even she ultimately lost her job. And this was one of the key issues that turned so badly against her. So I think the Victorian government have got to seriously reconsider their position here. And that they need to say no to this.
Absolutely. Also, the crime in Victoria, Jacinta Allen's being slammed for really failing to crack down on the state's crime crisis. am hearing so often plenty of Victorians speaking out about living in fear. You know, in a recent incident, 4 teenage boys drove a stolen car into Melbourne's Burke Street shopping mall, leading to a woman being hospitalised. I mean, really, Jacinta Allen's failing to crack down on crime, isn't she?
No, look, I think she's passed some good legislation that hasn't all come into effect yet. More machetes are being handed in than you know, the Liberals
the machete
said
bin.
that they, but they're being handed in. I mean, the policy so far has been pretty successful. Now, does that mean the hardened criminal gang elements? I mean, where I think
Stephen, I think Victoria is becoming a laughing stock around the world because of these machete bins. I don't think that's the solution to the crime crisis.
No, let's be clear. The claim that it costs $300,000 per bin is just false. Just false.
I think the issue is more the concept that criminals that were thinking about carrying out a machete attack are all of a sudden going to think again and hand in their machetes.
Well, there seems to be far more machetes being put into those bins than anyone wants to give the government credit for. But to the core of the issue, the Victorian government need to understand that many of these under 18 kids are not just a wayward waif who's got problems at home or, you know, needs to flee home and you've got to treat them in a different way. I think they need to understand that they are being paid by organised crime to commit many of these crimes that they are committing. And they need to be hard-nosed about how they want to deal with kids getting paid to go and commit crimes. They're not, you know, some kid who's been caught shoplifting, you know, and has left home. These are hardened criminal gangs that are paying kids to commit these crimes. I think the Victorian government just needs to take that context, not the traditional context that they're children who've lost their way. This is not what is happening in Victoria.
Stephen Conroy, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Great to talk again.